Can you give us some concrete steps to become expert in DevOps? So how to get better at cloud interviews? If someone comes to you for career advice, what factors would you ask them to consider for selecting either a manager or an architect job? What does your day look like as a technical account manager in GitLab?
An amazing undervalued skill
Right.
is being able to graphically represent your work, whether that's through architecture diagrams, whether that's through making PowerPoint slides. I've seen people with immaculate resumes come through and they just spew every buzzword. Surround yourself with people who are smarter, more, or equal ambitious to you. That way I'm just always being motivated and driven because I'm looking at what they're able to accomplish.
Welcome, guys and girls, to another exciting video in my channel. Today we have a special treat. We have someone who is a DevOps pro, used to be a fresher, then became individual contributor on DevOps, ran multiple successful initiatives in a Fortune 10 company, became a manager, and now he works in one of the top DevOps company in the world, GitLab. So before we jump into the question and answer, let's do the intro. Conley, why don't you introduce yourself to my viewers?
First of all, it is a privilege and an honor to be here. I often, and you know this, refer to your videos when I'm in a pinch. I need a different way of looking at a problem or technology. So it's super, such an honor to be here. My background is right now I'm at GitLab, like you said, I'm a technical account manager there. But I didn't start there. My first job out of college was at Verizon. Coming out of college, it's a humongous world. So I didn't really know where to start. I knew I wanted something where I could just explore and try to figure out my brand. What am I good at
Right.
in a safe way? So the first job that I took was on an agile transformation type team. It was in the Verizon wireless business. Basically, what I did there was I taught agile fundamentals
Mhm.
and I collected data on the success of our agile transformation.
Mhm.
So that kind of introduced me to sort of analytics and how do you know if what you're doing is actually working, getting some feedback from your programs. The next year, though, was really where my career kind of started to form, really started to take place. And that was because I got to work under an amazing technology fellow. It's like a staff engineer at a lot of places, somebody who's had 15 plus years experience.
Mhm.
And basically, what he was doing, this was early 2016. So he was introducing DevOps as it was really going mainstream for
Mhm.
corporations at this point after many years of the tech companies doing it. And so I was just up for anything, but he spearheaded a program called the DevOps Cup.
Mhm.
And he needed somebody to be the program manager of that. I knew zero about DevOps. Like I did not even know what it stood for. And so I was coming in absolutely fresh, like I'm sure a lot of us who started this job. But he gave me a lot of homework and he would kind of test my knowledge and see if I could lead
Mhm.
other people on calls.
Mhm.
Um, so after running that program for a year, I started to have my own ideas and my own plans.
Mhm.
So the DevOps Cup was really just for the business to business part of our company.
Mhm.
So I was able to take it across all 6 of our business units, and it quadrupled in size. So a lot more teams, a lot more developers. In all, it was like 200 applications and over 1,000 developers that were involved. And it was basically you needed to have some visibility into your CI build times, build frequencies, MTTR. So it was pretty awesome because those 200 apps now had insights that they didn't have before. So they could really start to prove like, why are we
Mhm.
investing time outside of our business requirements on something? And so that exposed me to a lot of people and that started to build my internal brand. I did have one stepping stone in between individual contributor and manager role.
Mhm.
It's really worth noting. I was AWS Solutions Architect Associate certified in early 2018.
Mhm.
It was something I'd been hearing so much about. Verizon invested in a Cloud Guru and some other tools to really make it simple for us to do that. So it was a no-brainer. And that was really the equivalent of having like a master's degree
Mhm.
at the time in terms of worth. So when the opportunity opened up that a manager was needed to lead a CI/CD analytics program, I had 3 years of experience by then. I went through a leadership program that gave me sort of the soft skills, had trainings and executive style trainings built in. In the interview, I presented a short, a medium, and long term strategy, and I ended up landing that job as an engineering manager.
This is like really interesting. You are the first guest in my channel who has experience of both individual contributor, manager, and now back to individual contributor. So my next question is, what are some of the pros and cons of each role? And then a follow-up is, if someone comes to you for career advice, what factors would you ask them to consider for selecting either a manager or an architect job?
Yeah, definitely. It weighed a lot into my decision making, because now I am an IC again.
Mhm,
So um, for one, I think a big pro with being a manager, a people leader, is they're trusting you with that responsibility, which means you need to hire diverse talent, which means you need to ensure that your team's developing. I
mhm,
loved that. I also really liked the strategizing, road mapping. So as a manager, you're always thinking at least 3 to 12 months ahead, what's around the curve.
mhm,
The higher up you go, the further out you're looking. And that really
mhm.
fascinates me. I loved that piece of the management job. The cons were, I think, the amount of hats you have to wear. And depending on the company culture that you're at, managers are in meetings like all day. So
Mhm,
you have to really ferociously guard your calendar, protect that time, silence
mhm,
notifications, hope for no fire drills to actually think, to actually build your backlog and to really develop your own skill set. So that's like a huge con. I think some people are amazing at that. I tend to want to help people and I'm a people pleaser at times. I have a hard time saying no. And
mhm.
so, because I want somebody to return that favor in the case that I need them. So that was why it wasn't a pro. That was more of a con for me on the management side.
Okay, but how about the IC? Like, what are some of the things that you like and don't like?
Yeah. So now that I'm back in IC world,
Yeah.
it's really awesome. So some of the pros is that you really get to control your destiny. So
Mhm,
it's more of a direct return on investment depending on what you put in. I feel like as a manager, it's you can try all you want, but at the end of the day, it's still that individual's motivation, skill set that all factors into your success. And that in and of itself is a skill that I was happy
mhm,
to build. But
mhm,
as a C, you get more of a one-to-one direct return on what you put in,
mhm,
and you just have more time to skill build. It's expected of me now to carve out 25% of my week to be learning, to be watching videos, to be running workshops, that kind of thing.
in corporate America and corporate India too, I have a lot of viewers from India. Generally, management positions are sometimes perceived as maybe a little bit more prestigious, right? So, what made you go back to DevOps Pro professional role?
Yeah. For one, I do not have an ego, right? I think it's important for everyone to kind of humble themselves. Like
Mhm,
you can always get better, you can always be learning. It doesn't matter your title so much. So
mhm,
it doesn't bother me at all. I make more money now than I did as an engineering manager, anyways.
mhm,
So the ego's got to go out the door.
right.
And where I stand on this right now is it's really a balancing act. In the
Mhm,
first 10 or so years of your career,
mhm,
I'm 7 years in, and I felt
mhm,
that I was losing my technical edge already.
mhm,
And so it was really important for me to switch back to IC, a
mhm,
job that will enable me to hone those skills where I can still practice sort of that leadership, road mapping, strategy stuff that I was doing as a manager, but
mhm,
I'm still expected to really go deep on a product. Um,
mhm.
and so I always know I think that my natural gift is towards management, and I think I'll end up there again one day. But it is a seesaw and a balance that you have to get right.
So when I knew you, Conley, I think 5 years back, you were just starting your journey in cloud journey. You were new. You did not know much about DevOps, but now you are a DevOps pro. So basically, you went from zero to hero. So can you give us some concrete steps that people should follow to become expert in DevOps?
Yeah, I think that your channel covers a lot of the foundations, right? Like
Mhm.
getting some of the skill sets and the chops that you
Mhm.
just need to have.
Mhm.
Obviously not being expert level, but being able to speak about at least one cloud. This kind of advice that you've given is amazing. So I'm not going to exhaust those or repeat those. I think the unique things that I've picked up on to advance my career is first and foremost, surround yourself with people who are smarter, more or equal ambitious to you. You can't go wrong with that. Like I've always that way I'm just always being motivated and driven because I'm looking at what they're able to accomplish. So it makes it easier. So and that kind of leads to my next point, which is finding your routine. If you're surrounding
Mhm.
yourself with people who are super smart, ambitious, and they're always taking time to get certified, you naturally end up talking about that kind of stuff with them, and you're more motivated. Um, and then finding a routine that you can really just hone and stick to. I watched this 6 Morning Habits of High Performers by Hal Elrod. I think that's a good start if you're looking for some really concrete examples on how to, he talks about basically goal setting. So every week I start with some personal and professional goals on a sticky note, either Sunday night, Monday morning, and I'm just keeping it 4 to 8 things. And as the week goes on, I'm checking those boxes off. And so having just a routine that I can count on, I hold myself accountable for, that will lend itself to the learning time that you need. It'll lend itself to the career development time that you need.
Mhm.
So the third thing would be conferences. And this may not be, obviously with COVID, conferences look very different. So there is tons of free virtual conferences. There's
Right.
one called All Day DevOps that's very popular. There's one that I personally really enjoy, which is the Inner Source Commons Summit that I've been able to speak at and attend and stuff. But I would say conferences because either as a speaker or a participant, you're building network, you're learning what those trends are in tech, which helps you at least in talking the lingo or maybe even influences what you end up studying.
Mhm.
Um, I actually went to reInvent in 2017 as a booth guy, like just the people who are behind the booth handing out swag, and I gave 2 talks, if you could even call it that. They had slides, and I had a little microphone, like I was Britney Spears, and
Mhm.
everything. And like 4 people stopped and listened. It was so loud in the expo center, I could
Yeah.
barely think. Um, so that was like a real challenging moment, but it was such a building block. So when you're given these small opportunities, just take them. It's a little uncomfortable. If you do get those, I would highly advise to take them. And then I spoke at 2 internal conferences that year. And then my goal in 2019 was to do 4 large speaking gigs. And so I
Mhm.
had topics that were sort of niche. The DevOps Cup was this gamification and point system around a transformation, and inner sourcing is another passion of mine. So it
Mhm.
was pretty niche, and that really greatly increased my chances of getting in. I was also at a huge telco with Verizon, so people know that brand, and maybe they know your company's brand as well. So you can kind of leverage that to get your name in on some of these call for papers.
No, definitely. Couple of things I would like to stress on is sometimes you see these folks there presenting in reInvent or AWS Summit, and you think you will never get there. But remember, there are a lot of dirty work and groundwork that you need to do before you get there. Like Conley said, first time he went reInvent, he was manning the booth. Similarly, for me, first time I went reInvent from AWS, I was actually supporting workshop and stuff, right? And as you go there, and then even internally in Verizon, I supported a couple of internal conferences that we ran just as a booth guy or just helping folks out. The advantage is number one, you get to meet with the folks who are presenting, you get to meet with the smart minds. And as you learn from them through osmosis and you get yourself out there, it makes your chances much higher to get into that team. So that's how I migrated from mainframe to cloud, because after I went to the DevOps days, I came to know some people. After I learned, I reached out to them. So next question, this is a very, very popular question that I get is, did you need to learn coding to get into the cloud?
Yeah, I mean, it is a hot topic because it's tough. It's tough to learn how to code if you've never done it before. Um, I went through a technical major, so I did take C++, C Sharp, SQL, .NET, HTML type classes in college.
Mhm.
I probably retained 10% of that at best. So things that I actually use in my job regularly is Markdown, Git, command line interfaces for different tools like Docker and GitLab. I'm writing a lot of technical documentation, so editing existing code bases. I'm never, really just writing a humongous program that I start by myself, and I doubt many people in enterprise are. So there's so much free content out there, and it'll earn your appreciation of developers' work that you're working with, and it'll earn their respect in the process. So I would also say, other than like programming languages, an amazing undervalued skill
Right.
is being able to graphically represent your work, whether that's through architecture diagrams, whether that's through making PowerPoint slides. I was doing a lot of PowerPoint my first year out of college, and I use those skills. I use Lucidchart now to really explain diagrams and to get my thoughts across. I'm a visual learner. I find that a lot of people are, so I convey my ideas through charts and diagrams a lot of the time. And as someone who managed developers, it was such a game changer. If a developer could also spend a day away from coding and working on wireframes or collaborating with me and their manager on a systems diagram to show loosely coupled applications. Such a game changer. So I would definitely pick up that skill.
But there are a lot of fluff in the DevOps cloud world. What topics you think have low return and can wait till you get the job?
Unless you're trying to be a sysadmin or
Mhm.
one of like the four people maintaining the Jenkins infrastructure at your company, I'd say spend that time learning how to use the tool and not administering the tool. More
Mhm.
and more companies are pushing customers to their SaaS product exclusively, self-managed products. And there's more and more managed services out there because that helps all of us focus on the higher order of thought, problem solving that actually impacts the bottom line and revenue of the company rather than administering a tool.
So, talking about tools, if someone wants to learn GitLab, what material and steps would you suggest?
Yeah, I think that I'm not here to shamelessly plug GitLab. There's GitHub is out there. GitLab's different and it's a complete platform. So from everything from planning your work, creating epics and roadmaps, all the way to committing your code, CI/CD, release, monitor. It just does so much. It's unique in this way. So if that excites you and you would rather just learn one tool really well, the best way to get started with GitLab is YouTube. If you're coming in fresh, just go to YouTube. There's plenty of courses. I check this out ahead of time. You can also create an account for free on our gitlab.com site. And if you are someone with experience in GitLab, but you're really just interested in, say, the CI function, because that's
Right.
sort of a game changer, if you're trying to get away from a Jenkins type workflow, I would recommend a link that I'll put in the bottom in the comments. So there's some quick start guides just for CI.
So let's say someone is trying to start on a cloud, and we all know cloud certificates are super important. If they can do one cloud cert, which one would you recommend, if any?
This, I may be dating myself a little bit here, Raj. So I think you would probably be the best to answer this question. But I'm going to go with the one that helped me the most, which
Right.
was definitely the
Mhm.
Solutions Architect Associate for AWS. You can just choose a cloud. I know that you say that sort of as a mantra. It doesn't really matter which one. There's a lot more companies using AWS, so that's great. But
Mhm.
it's such a foundational training to get, and you really just can't go wrong with that.
My opinion is still the same. If you're new and trying to get into cloud DevOps, I like to go for things which opens up the maximum number of possibilities, right? So you can study a lot and get a Terraform cert, but Terraform at the end of the day is infrastructure as code. So it could be interchangeable with some other things. But the cloud architect associate cert teaches you a lot that could be used in multiple interviews, multiple projects. So the next question is, sometimes a lot of my viewers are super technical savvy. They know their stuff, they know the coding, they know the design, but sometimes they are not good at cloud interviews. So how to get better at cloud interviews?
I've seen this on the management side. I've seen people with immaculate resumes come through and they just spew every buzzword and I don't even get a question in. It's just a huge speech
Right.
about every word they can think of. Don't do that. Instead, practice. So that's an obvious answer. But if you're anything like me, you're not going to actually schedule one-on-ones with peers and friends like Raj here or other friends that I work with. Um, I need some kind of table stakes personally, or I just won't feel that impending doom of social embarrassment that you get if you flunk an interview. So look for jobs at you can start at Fortune 500 companies right now. They're desperate, and if you can get through screening and land the first round, that's all you need to practice, right? So just getting through the person who's screening you, they're just looking for a couple keywords, and they'll ship you off to the hiring manager. Once you're there, that's where that practice begins. And honestly, it doesn't take 20, 50, 100 interviews like the stories you see on LinkedIn
Yeah.
that get 1,000 upvotes. Most people are getting jobs after 3 to 5 callbacks, like 3 to 5 jobs that they've actually gotten the first interview for.
Mhm.
So for reference, I started to really feel comfortable after about 5 or 6 interviews, and that was only 2 jobs in total. Within those 2 jobs, I did about 10 interviews. So halfway through, I really started to feel comfortable, and that made it so that I was very intentional. I wasn't wasting my time with just volume. And so be intentional about jobs that make sense for you and try really hard for those.
You interview a lot. I'm going to turn the question and ask you, uh, what do you look for in a candidate, especially for a fresher who is trying to get a job in cloud and DevOps?
I'm looking for honesty
Yeah.
and somebody who has practiced the tell me about yourself question. This is literally the hardest question for me to answer. It took getting advice from friends, having to watch some YouTube videos because I used to fall into that trap of just give me the history of your life. What they really want to know is why has your experience led you to this job? So try to really get that nice, neat, and compact, and you'll come across really well. It's a great first impression, and you kind of get in that rhythm with the conversation and you settle down on your nerves. It would be ideal if they're very comfortable with at least one programming language. All
Mhm.
right. If they went through a boot camp, that's awesome.
Mhm.
Um, and it shows me in a very condensed amount of time you can learn. And that was the most important thing for me to gain the confidence. And it's a skill set I'm looking for in anyone that I hire is, can you pick up on something you're very uncomfortable with? And can you prove to me that you've done it? So I think
Mhm.
that would be the one thing to kind of harp on if you're a fresher.
What does your day look like as a technical account manager in GitLab?
So my first priority is tending to my customers. A
Mhm.
technical account manager basically is that technical liaison for any kind of software provider that your company uses. If you purchase enough, it'll usually come with, or you can request an account manager. So I had to balance that though with learning and training, preparing for workshops that customers need. It could be on literally any part of the GitLab service. So I need to be very wide in terms of my breadth of knowledge. And then there's a couple things like CI, SCM that I'm deep on.
Mhm.
Um, and so that's what I have to do as a TAM. And I have to say my favorite part of my job is strategizing on stage adoption. GitLab has 10 stages. It's basically equivalent to the 8 stages of DevOps. And everything from planning your work and developing it, testing it, deploying it, etc. So that's what really excites me is that I get to go deep on this technical product, work
Mhm.
with my customers as they have feature requests, and then of course support them if something goes really south.
Conley, thanks again for doing this interview with me. So, how can people reach you?
You can purchase a bunch of GitLab as a start, and then LinkedIn. I can put that in the description if
Mhm.
anyone wants to contact because GitLab is actively hiring. We're hiring in all functions. Under customer success, where I am, we do have some technical account management positions. So if what I've talked about today excites you, interests you, it's something you think you can do, definitely apply. And yeah, thanks so much, Raj, for having me.
If you found this video helpful, if this was useful, please click subscribe, click the like button, smash it if that's something you are into, comment, share this channel with your friends and family, help this channel grow. All right, that's it for this one. I'll see you guys and girls in the next video. Bye.